It's like where you are in your journey, and that's where you need to start, regardless of what you see other people doing. Because if you stick with it and you build those habits, you are for sure going to end up there. Welcome to Goodbye Hangry. Learning to live a life that's happy, healthy, and full, one bite at a time. I am your host, Audra Budenseek. Hello and welcome back to Goodbye Hangry. Today I have with me Dr. Lynn Deang. She is a physical therapist and owner and founder of She Blooms Physical Therapy. She specializes in preventative and rehab care for pregnancy and postpartum women, as well as treatment in abdominal and pelvic floor dysfunctions. Not only is she a great doctor, but she is also a wonderful lady, and I'm so grateful that our paths crossed. And I just want to say thank you for being here and sharing your expertise with all of us.
Thank you for having me. This is my first podcast, so I'm super excited.
I'm excited for you. I'm excited. It's always like a little nervous to do it, but you'll get the hang of it really fast. Today we're going to be discussing how fitness affects your cycle.
Yes.
So I think we're going to start by just talking a little bit about menstrual cycle and what that looks like. And I know this is going to be a little bit embarrassing, but I don't know. I've heard all like the different phases and stuff of your cycle, but I don't know any of it. So we're just going to touch on that for a moment.
Yeah. And I think it's great. Anytime for our own self-knowledge as women, it's good to know about our cycles. And then at the same time, when you're working with women, it kind of helps you to understand, just how we operate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm definitely, as I mentioned prior to us starting the podcast, I'm no cycle expert, but I know that in my journey of being a physical therapist and working with women, the more that I understand anatomy, I feel like it's the blueprint of really just knowing ourselves. Our bodies tell a story. So as far as the phases of menstrual cycle, I think it's really good to start with the basics. And in general, there are 4 phases of the menstrual cycle, and that's the menstrual phase, the follicular phase, the ovulation phase, and the luteal phase. So every month, a woman's body is preparing for the potential of pregnancy. Whether that's our intention or not, that is the continuous cycle that happens. So we experience hormonal activity that repeats on these monthly intervals. So, and it takes about an average of 28 days for these cycles to occur. If you're speaking to your Western medicine, doctor, typically they only talk about 3 phases. So they'll mention the follicular, ovulation, and luteal phase. So sometimes they kind of just kick out the menstruation phase and kind of put it into the follicular phase. So if you're ever describing symptoms that you're having or complaints that you have, you might want to talk to your doctor in that kind of language. So those are the phases. And what I tell every woman is that you're really only fertile 6 of the days. A man's fertile every day. Every day they're walking around locked and loaded, ready to go.
Ready.
And we're really only fertile in those 6 days. So our cycle's so beautiful in that these ebbs and flows, it really makes us who we are in our personality. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know anything about it. So I'm assuming the menstrual phase is when you're actually menstruating.
Correct.
And then the follicular phase is when you're getting ready to ovulate?
Correct. So so if we had to break it up into, ovulation is this peak component that, the egg is released. And so if we were to say everything before the egg being released is you're menstruating and then your follicular phase. So your the first day of your menstruation is when you bleed, when the endometrial lining bleeds, and you would track your cycle. That's day 1. Okay. So when you see any kind of bloody show, that's day 1, and that it varies from woman to woman, but it will vary and can last about a week. And then after that, estrogen begins to peak as it's preparing for it shed the lining because you weren't pregnant when. That's what happens during your cycle. So that's endometrial lining of the tissues of your uterus, and there's water and there's blood as well. So that all sheds off, and it just helps us to get clean in our uterus. And so then your body starts to prepare for, am I going to implant an egg? Am I going to get pregnant? So then the estrogen begins to rise, and then you ovulate, and then after that, your ovulation, you have this dip of estrogen, and then progesterone increases. So we have this kind of flow of what happens. So that's kind of in general the basics to that.
Okay. I kind of understand it a little bit. I really should know more, like you said. Like, understanding these things in our bodies is super important.
It is, and that's, I actually love that in 2015, I try to keep up with what the American College of Gynecology talks about, the ACOG, and they put out this statement that said that menstruation, where is it? I wrote it down here. So they did a statement that says menstruation in girls and adolescents using the menstrual cycle could be a vital sign. So it really is a reflection of our overall health as women.
Yeah.
So these symptoms that we may have that we complain about, it's might be normal to have a little bit of cramping before our cycle, but killer cramps aren't normal, or feeling so overly fatigued and you just don't feel like you have energy, and you're gaining weight and you don't understand why, and you've not changed anything about what you've been doing, your lifestyle pattern. Right. Those are signs that your body's saying, something's up. So it is a huge vital sign, and vital signs are like measurements of how are our essential body functions doing,
right? Our
pulse, our heart rate, our temperature. So your menstrual cycle is a vital sign to who you are as a woman.
Yeah, that's really important too. I think, like, getting to know your body and how it responds to things, and like through your menstrual cycle, that way if you know yourself, you can be an advocate for yourself whenever you feel a different way or some things are changing.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting to me that we're not taught this, like, specifically growing up. Like, why are we not taught this? I feel like it's really important. Instead, we're just taught, at some point, you're going to start your period, and what that means is you're going to bleed, and here's a pad or a tampon, and then you're just on your way, and nobody really knows or understands what it's supposed to be like, how they're supposed to feel. And so it's kind of like educating ourselves in a way that we can know our bodies and speak up for ourselves whenever we need something.
Absolutely. And I think that's the key, is that when we know our own bodies as adult women, we can share that with younger women.
Yeah.
And I absolutely agree. Like, I think my education with my menstrual cycle, I think my mom left like a pamphlet on the bed or something.
I didn't even get that. I got, like, here's a tampon. And here's the booklet to how to put in a tampon. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah. Right. So it's just not, because it's in an area that seems like it's taboo.
Right.
I think we just haven't talked about it. And so this is part of our sexual function. It's part of who we are.
Yeah.
So I totally agree. I feel like it's just not explained to you as a woman, and then as an adolescent, as a young girl, we don't even know what's happening to our bodies. We just, it shows up. The period shows up, and you're like, ah.
Yeah. And I think that there's also, like, a societal stigma around having your period, and it's like, kind of, sometimes I feel like it's like shamed. And
absolutely.
And because of that, we feel like we can't discuss it. But like you said, it's such an important part of us. It's a vital sign that we really should learn ourselves and learn these things about our bodies.
Absolutely. And I think that's where it's so countercultural to talk about these things, but it really is who we are. It's our identity as women, that we are life bearers. We give life in that way, that our bodies show that in its signs and what it does every cycle, every month.
Yeah. Our bodies are incredible.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Yes.
So just jumping right into the topic, I guess. So how does fitness help with your cycle?
Yeah, so fitness, and we're talking about fitness exercise in general, obviously is good for our overall general health. I know that it helps to lower your risk of heart disease in general. We're just talking about general exercise, blood pressure, you're good for your mood, good for your cognitive health. So what it does when you are assisting yourself as far as your overall health as a woman, just having a regular lifestyle of exercise regimen is just good for your health in general.
Right.
So when it comes to actual cycles, the science behind, why is movement good? Maybe why would you want to exercise when you're on your cycle? There's an endorphin release. It helps with, circulation of your blood circulation. So it might help with cramping. But then knowing that kind of sweet spot is how much exercise should I be doing?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure you get a lot of those questions, which I do too.
Yeah.
Yes.
All the time. And I know for me, in my personal experience with it, is that I go through phases where I'll exercise and then I'll take some time off, like a mental break, and like just to give my body like time to heal and really like a reset, pretty much. And in the time that I'm like resetting, which will be anywhere between like 1 to 3 months, I noticed that my cycle or my symptoms get more intense. So like
what kind of symptoms are we speaking of?
I get, my cramps are worse. I also, my boobs get really tender.
We're going there. We're talking about boobs and all.
Jumping right in. Just, no shame. This is who we are.
Yes.
So, yeah, they get really tender, like probably really quickly after I ovulate. But normally, like just if I'm working out, they'll get tender just lightly, just like a week before. So it's just longer, and they're more painful, and they swell, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. But then when I'm working out, those symptoms aren't as intense for me. But that's my personal experience with it. And it's just weird, and it's what I've noticed, like how my body goes through that. And I'm like, oh, okay.
And that's the beautiful thing about what our bodies tell us, that you're able to see these signs of what your body's telling you, whereas other women may feel like if they exercise too much, it makes those symptoms occur.
Right.
Versus the other way around.
Yeah.
So it does, obviously it's showing that your body is appreciating that the movement that you give it is very healthy for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
For me too, personally, I grew up, I was a gymnast. And then I did competitive cheerleading, which not just like rah, but like flips and tumbles and thrown in there and all that stuff. But so I've been pretty active almost my whole life. So that's probably why when I'm not active, my body responds that way. Whereas for other people, like you said, everybody's going to be different. So
correct. It's definitely individualized to the woman. And I think what we have to remember is that exercise is perceived by the body as a form of like stress. It's definitely stress put on the body in some way. And so, these stress hormones, the cortisol is released. But what happens is if we exercise regularly in general, it helps our body to continue to deal with that kind of stress. And then it kind of balances out this and actually decreases the release of cortisol when we're actually exercising on a regular basis.
Right.
So if you're exercising in extreme, training, I think having that periodization and what you were talking about of like giving your body rest when it needs the rest.
Right.
And maybe when it's showing you those symptoms, maybe it's giving you, communicating with you in a way that it wants you to pay attention more. Or maybe there's something that you can do on the nutritional side to support your hormones.
Yeah. Yes. I can find too, like, you brought up nutrition, that when I'm not eating as clean, my symptoms also get worse.
Yes,
so same. They get more intense, and I'm just like, okay, it's time to clean up my food. Like, not only is my body affected, like physically, like my mood is too. Like, I can tell all these things just by like what I'm eating, and that's like my first sign. Okay, we should probably clean this up.
Yeah.
We've had fun. Now it's time. Now we got to focus on our health again.
And I agree. I feel like as my own experience is like I can tell when my irritability, and that's after ovulation, right before my cycle happens and this progesterone's higher, I feel like I have a tendency to be a little bit more bloated. And if I'm not bloated, and I can be a little bit irritable, and if I'm not giving my body the right nutrition or not sleeping well, woo, I am not fun.
I know. I wish Michael were in here. He'd be like, yeah, I know you're not fun, Audra.
So I think what's so cool is our bodies are constantly communicating with us.
Yes.
And we get to kind of co-create and pattern with how we're maneuvering life.
Right.
I also think that sometimes as women, we live in this world where we have these expectations of how we should be, or how fast we should be moving, or how productive we should be, that I think sometimes what's so cool about our cycles is that it's telling us to slow down a little bit, or be a little bit reflective, or spend some time kind of not pushing your body in a hard way, and it's okay to give yourself grace. And I think that's the cool part about being a woman, whereas that's what our cycles tell us. It's cyclical in nature. And, a man's like a go, fertile all the time. So our bodies are just two different stories.
Right.
So we have to sometimes just kind of really listen to what our bodies are telling us.
Yeah. We're always changing.
Yes.
Like, constantly in change. Like,
and not to knock on the men that they're not changing. They're changing. It's just, we are constant in change.
Yes. Yeah, that makes it fun. So why does fitness help, or why can fitness help you in your cycle?
Yeah, and as I talked about, all the great benefits of of what exercise does in general. And obviously my first piece of advice is to not just exercise just for if you had cycle issues, to exercise for a lifestyle.
Right.
Yes. But it does help because it increases these endorphins. It helps to level out your cortisol. It helps to have good blood flow to your body. So whenever you're in your cycle, obviously if you have conditions and diagnoses like endometriosis or PCOS, I think that's a different category where you kind of have to really listen to what your body's telling you and kind of support your hormonal health as best as possible in different ways, nutrition and all those other things. But as far as like this constant lifestyle, you're getting all the benefits in general.
Yeah. I love that because we try to teach our clients that, and actually we do teach them that it should just be about a lifestyle and making sure you're creating those healthy habits for yourself in a way that you're focusing really solely on your health. And then when you focus on your health and do those habits, the rest of it is the benefits. So if you need to lose weight for health reasons, if you focus on your health, the weight will come off. If you focus on your health by eating right, maybe some of your digestive issues will heal up. So just focusing on your health, and then all the benefits will naturally follow, because I think people focus too much on the benefits and they get lost. Because since they focus on the benefits, when they stop seeing a benefit, because change is so up and down, when they're down, they give up. And it's just like, if you focus on health in general, it'll push you to keep going. So
I think that's what it is sometimes in a fitness world, we might be looking for physical type changes of like weight loss, or do my abs look a certain way, or are my arms toned up? And there's deeper signs that our body's telling us that could show up in blood work, like maybe your cholesterol is improved and your blood sugar levels are improved. So all of those benefits obviously are what a good exercise fitness regimen offers.
Yes, definitely.
Heart health, all of it.
I agree. How long would someone need to be working out to see the benefits of their fitness on their cycle? Is there like, I know everybody's different, but is there kind of like a window or?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I guess it would depend upon what your initial goal is. So if you're starting an exercise regimen because you want your hormonal health and your cycle health to improve, I definitely think it's something that just takes the body time. It's not something quick, which I'm sure is the same thing, the language you use in fitness. And if I were to put my PT hat on, anytime we have like a soft tissue injury, it takes like 6 to 8 weeks for the injury to just heal.
Yep.
And then it takes 12 weeks for you to reach like a performance change.
Right.
So anytime you're injecting anything that really is good for you, it takes time.
Right. That's what
good things take time.
I know. And it's frustrating. I get that, especially like because we as humans naturally want to get that like immediate gratification.
Yes.
But when it comes to your health, that's unfortunately not how it works. And I try to remind my clients of that too, especially when they first start, that like you said, the first 6 to 8 weeks is like a toss-up, because some people's bodies will adjust more quickly in that amount of time, whereas other people, like somebody who hasn't worked out ever and they come in here and they start working out, like you said, their cortisol levels rise, and like because of that your body might be holding on to more weight and all these other things that you don't have control over, and you just got to give your body time to like adjust.
Amen.
And then after that adjustment period, that's where like the beauty happens, and then you stick to it, and then eventually if you stick to anything, you're gonna get to where you want to be. So
absolutely.
And health works the same way.
I totally agree. And I think it's just really hard to be patient to see things over time versus we want it now.
Yeah, it is. And even reminding like our clients that, and I remind myself that even when it comes to other things like goals that I have, it's still like hard to accept it.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle with the same. It's a wrestle that I definitely face every day. My patients want to feel better now, and I have to explain the physiological process of healing.
Yeah.
As a physical therapist,
right?
So it's, again, I think we're speaking the same language,
exactly,
just in different domains of where we work. Yes,
exactly. Are there specific exercises or types of fitness or things that you can do for you that will be the most beneficial?
Yeah, so I tried to do a lot of research on, at one point I had a patient that had asked me this question, and I had found a ton of different things, and really there isn't really like a study that's saying like, this type of exercise is great for you. I think what you have to understand about your body is that in general, your estrogen and your progesterone are lowest during the menstrual cycle. So you're gonna feel likely a little more fatigued than you were at other parts of the month and have less energy at that time. So if you wanted to honor that, maybe doing a more lower cardiovascular program or a lower volume of strength training, walking, brisk walking may be sufficient for you, or yoga, a lower, more of a, I don't know, like a vinyasa
low intensity,
yoga program. If you're an athlete and you have trained in a certain way and you don't see your vital sign as a menstrual cycle changing at all, and you can continue to push your body at intense levels during your menstrual cycle, I mean, those are green lights that your body's saying, yeah, I'm good. I can keep up.
I can like feel my energy waning because I'm going to start like seriously like today or tomorrow. And I was working out today and I was like trying to push myself because I was also reading in a book one time called The 4 Agreements, where they said that you should always try your best. But the problem with that is you compare your best to your best.
Correct.
So on your best day, when you do your best, you believe that is your best, but that is not always your best. So my best would be on a high energy day. I get a good workout in. I'm very productive. I get a lot of work done. And then there are days, like you said, where you're going to have low energy because maybe you started your period.
Yes.
And you can't get as good of a workout in. You don't feel as productive. You have brain fog and all this stuff. So you cannot expect that standard for yourself in that moment. So knowing your cycle in that way and how your body's responding to things too can help you too, and knowing like what your best is for that day and what you can do for yourself. I
love that, Audra. That's a very true statement. And I think women, we need to give ourselves grace because we're dynamic in nature, and that is our best for that day.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't my best, but I did my best. I can say that. And to be honest, like I didn't even finish it, but that's okay because I didn't have the energy.
I think what's great is you were consistent.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I'm sure you in your fitness industry and me with my patients, it's about consistency over time.
Right.
That really gives us the outcome product that we want. We want habits to lead us to these greater potentials.
Exactly. Yes. And speaking of that, I think with social media now being such a huge thing and like seeing all these like fitness people out there and all this stuff too, you automatically, comparison is just so natural, and you automatically compare yourself to these people, and you watch what these people are doing and you think, oh, I want to be like that person, so you immediately jump into doing what that person is doing. But you don't see like the journey that person took to get to that point. And if you want to achieve that goal, you don't start there. You start small and you work your way up. And that is also another way that you can honor your body, is to start where you are. You don't have to push yourself to this extreme that you see other people doing. So if you have never exercised a day in your life, like maybe start by going on a walk. You don't have to like immediately hit the gym and like pump out weights because you see that's what other people are doing. It's like where you are in your journey, and that's where you need to start, regardless of what you see other people doing. Because if you stick with it and you build those habits, you are for sure going to end up there.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Preach. That's so funny. Is it possible for fitness to negatively affect your cycle?
Yes, and that's another big yes. So these are definitely topics that I talk to my patients about often, because they may be coming to me for an injury, but as I actually unfold the story, and maybe I have a young athlete that's 16 and she's really overtraining. So excessive exercise, we talked about how it's balance.
Right.
Movement is definitely medicine. I say that all the time in my treatment room as well. But excessive exercise acts as, again, a stressor to the body, and a negative stressor, as if your body's now going to shut down vital functions because, we don't want to think about making a baby right now. Let's stop her cycle.
Right.
Because this is just, we got to keep the heart pumping, we got to keep the bones strong, and we have to do all these other things. So typically signs of, over exercising or overtraining, the first sign likely with a woman is she might experience amenorrhea or miss her period.
Right.
So that's always a vital sign to something, needs attention with what you're doing. And then injuries that don't get better. I find that I actually had this patient in the past who just wasn't getting better in how science kind of presents when I rehab XYZ. A patient should show improvement. So it wasn't that she wasn't working hard enough or anything. She just was overtraining.
Right.
And her body was screaming for nutrition and rest.
Right.
So those are definitely signs. So persistent injuries, a decline in performance, excessive fatigue, even reduced appetite, is another sign. Or just being really, really irritable and agitated tends to show up in women because of our hormone levels. Hormones sometimes get such a bad rap, and I don't mean to make it like it's so negative. Hormones are so negative, but the fluctuations are just so extreme that these huge dips in what we're experiencing, and they're supposed to flow and ebb and flow. When a woman is excessively exercising, sometimes these are the symptoms she experiences. So it can be too much at times.
Right. For me, I can definitely say, like, in the past, I've never missed a cycle, but there have been times where it's been like late by up to a week, and whoa, that was scary. But it was because I was exercising way too intensely. Yes. I didn't have that proper balance of the amount of exercise I was doing and the nutrition, the amount of food that I was taking in. And because of that, it was affecting my body in this way. And that was like a sign. My body was telling me, hey, something's not right here. Right. You need to figure it out.
Absolutely. And I love that we can think of it as a vital sign.
Yeah.
I know when I was in high school, I ran track, and I really pushed my body one of these years, and I didn't get my cycle for maybe like 4 months. I remember it being like almost the whole season. And I just didn't know that wasn't normal. And I remember we went all the way to state. I loved my team. We went all the way to state, and we were in this relay race, and I remember feeling so crappy. Yeah. And I'm sure it was just a compilation of just my body, really pushing itself to such extremes that I just didn't know what I needed at that time. No one talks about that stuff.
Right.
So I definitely think it's important to listen to how your body is telling you, as far as like your period is your report card. What is it telling you every month? And then also other signs to kind of look out for if you in an exercise regimen, if you are overtraining.
Yeah. That's I like that story because it's true.
It happened to me.
It's a true story. I'm a sucker for true stories.
Stories are great.
Yeah. So one common question that I get asked a lot from clients is it okay to exercise while you're on your period? You already touched on this a little bit, but
I did, and I say yes. I think it's so great to exercise while we're on our cycle. And again, just thinking about how we are so individualized. We're not robots, and every woman kind of has to be an advocate of her own health as far as what do I feel? What is my body telling me? And at the same time, is it that I just maybe I need a little bit of motivation to get going, and then once I get going, I feel great. The exercise is really helpful for me because I know that's how I feel. Yeah. When I first day of my cycle, now that I'm like later in my 40s, I don't feel as great as I used to previous decades. But I definitely am more gentle on my body now than I was before. And I see the benefits of, even if I don't feel up to it and I do exercise, I do feel good.
Right.
But I have to do a lot of a lower impact type exercising on day one. Day two, it's no big deal. I can keep going.
Yeah.
So, but that's me in my 40s versus in my 30s and 20s. Never really bothered me, but that was where I happened to be at that time. So I definitely think exercise is beneficial, and it is okay to exercise during your cycle. It just depends from woman to woman. It varies. Yeah. Especially if they're dealing with other hormonal health issues. Right. So some women that experience endometriosis may have extreme pain during their cycle, and they would avoid any kind of, movement at all costs. But I find that because I treat that diagnosis quite a bit, I try to encourage women to have some kind of consistency, even if they're doing some gentle stretching, because they kind of go down this road where they don't move at all. And so kind of, again, that balance of really, movement is medicine. It's meant to support your body. We're meant to move.
I love that. Especially because during that time, it can only take like a few days for you to derail the habits that you've even been building. So even if you don't go to the gym in that period, like still move, like get up, go for a walk, something gentle, like stretching, anything like you said, just to make sure you're just continuing with those habits too, even through it. It'll help you, because I know a lot of people will fall off. In my experience working with clients, usually right before their period, they get like these cravings all the time, and they're like, oh my gosh, I ate so much, and then they eat during their period a whole bunch too. Like they just give into their cravings, and then sometimes people just like fall off for a while because of that. And if you just find that balance for yourself and what you need personally, then it'll help you continue once those symptoms and everything else go away.
Do you find that that's the case? I mean, being that you have a gym setting where, obviously this is for women, I think it's fabulous. I love it. Do you find that that's something you see cyclical with your clients?
I can definitely think of a few, yes. Quite a few actually, who do experience that. But it's like it's every single time, and it's the same thing every time too. So
I would definitely encourage them to just walk, or if there's other programming that you're offering that is, I guess maybe of a lower impact, maybe that would be more attractive to them.
I know. We do.
Cycle days. Cycle days workout.
Just let us know. Actually, that's really funny you said that, because yesterday, a lady came in last night and she was working out. And we ended up like, we'll watch you as you go, and then we say like you graduated when you like move up in weight and that kind of thing. So it's kind of like a celebration. And we like walked over and graduated her and gave her heavier weights for her next round of exercises. And she was just like, oh gosh, I don't have really any energy. I'm on my cycle. I'm like, okay, let's bring the other weights back. I'm like, awesome. I'm glad you told us that, because then we can respect you and your needs in that way. So yeah, it's really helpful, just like being open, especially if you have a trainer, you're working with somebody, you're a therapist, or somebody that you can trust that's working with you in your health, just being open with them and just explaining to them how you're feeling and what you're experiencing, and they can help you work through it too.
I completely agree. And I love knowing that you do that here, that you can kind of ebb and flow with your women. That is why I love promoting what you're doing here. I definitely feel as though what I hear in my treatment room behind closed doors, because it's just me and my patient often, is that they're reporting that, I just kind of stopped going to the gym because I didn't feel like, I could adjust what I was doing, or I really didn't tell my trainer, but I was leaking, or I was, I had urinary leakage and I was just embarrassed. So you're right. Like we need to communicate with, our fitness providers and our healthcare providers, because I'm sure women want to be supported. It's just you have to talk about what it is that you're wrestling with so that we can support you on the journey.
Yeah, and we work with so many women that we've heard it before. Like, it's not embarrassing. Like we've seen it. We've been there. Like,
we are women. We know.
Yeah. Like we understand. There's there shouldn't be any shame behind it or any of that. So definitely being open. This is a super random question. It came to my head while we were talking about working out on your cycle. I hear a lot of yoga instructors say that you shouldn't do inversions. So an inversion is like anytime your head is below, like handstands or headstands, while you're on your cycle. They said something like the bleeding might go back up into your uterus and like go like do weird things like in your fallopian tubes and that kind of thing. Is that true? Is that because I've heard like some instructors say like they don't even ever mention it, and then some instructors are like very like, hey, they'll say it every class, if anybody in here is on your cycle, do not do this inversion, do this instead. So I don't know.
Oh, that's a great question. And I would tie that into what we do is we kind of take science and we kind of try to apply it, and we think, yeah, that makes sense. So this should match this, and this is why we should follow this. And the theory behind that is the retrograde flow of your menstrual cycle. And initially, endometriosis was a condition that was thought of that, it's retrograding, flowing back into parts of outside of the uterus, and that's why endometriosis occurs. And now we know more, and that's what's happening in science. We just know more and more and more over the years. You know, in the 80s, we thought slim fast was like a good thing, right? And now we're like, no.
Wait a second.
We thought, fat-free cookies, we can eat like the whole bag, and now we know better, So I think science is always evolving in that way. And that theory, does it make sense? In a sense that, if you turn your body upside down, you're on your cycle, and if the purpose of your endometrial lining is to flow out, does that make sense? Obviously, there's reason for why instructors may say that. But do gymnasts tumble while they're on their cycle and do all kinds of things they do? So I don't really know the full answer to that, other than it makes sense why we wouldn't want to stay inverted for like a whole hour session of yoga. I don't know. But, I know women invert themselves on quite, regular basis if they're in sports. So I really think the science has to catch up to eventually, like, if we were to test this theory in general, does that make sense? But it makes sense to me on a scientific basis. I just don't know if that's, 100% true. And I know I've read on different blogs when it comes to like menstrual cups and, I've seen some really holistic practitioners say, we shouldn't even be using cups or tampons. We should just be using pads and just letting it flow, or if you can just let it flow, let it flow. So, those are really two extremes of what we're talking about. So I think if you kind of take the anatomy of the woman's body and it's meant to cleanse itself, you want your body to do that. So you want to support it with exercise, and maybe if inversion is kind of scary to you, then don't do it.
No, that's kind of like the answer I came up with for myself. So like one day I was in class and I was on my cycle and I was like, well, I'm gonna try it, and then nothing happened, and then I did it again, nothing happened. So I know for me, like, I can personally do it because I've tried it with myself, but that's not to say like if somebody else did it, they might have a different experience too. So
sure,
but and
I love one of my instructors said this statement one day that your body doesn't always read the textbook. So even though we may think we know all this about our bodies, I think our bodies and that intuition of what we have about ourselves is typically normally right.
Definitely. And knowing, like, especially once you get to know yourself, you can tell more easily like when something's off or that kind of thing, and then you can really just try to figure it out and pinpoint it and really speak up for yourself. Especially if nobody's listening, speak up for yourself. Like, I find it, I've heard many stories about women who like go to their doctor and say something and they get written off. Like, I'm having this pain. Oh, cramps. What? It's just cramps. You're fine. But then but that there's something wrong. So find another doctor. Don't just, if it keeps happening and it's not right, be an advocate for yourself. Fight for yourself. Find somebody who's going to actually listen and keep looking until you find that person.
I absolutely agree with that. And I definitely run into that quite a bit. And not that I'm trying to knock doctors, but I just feel like as women, we need to advocate for if we really don't feel as though something's right. And keep searching until we find, a provider that can support us.
Exactly. Because nobody knows what you're going through. They can only know based off of the words that you give them. So if you know that something is not right, you're right. You're right. Nobody is in your body. Nobody else can experience what you're seeing and experiencing and feeling. So if you feel that way, then you're probably right.
It's so true.
So
yes.
But is there anything else that you want women to know that they can do to help their cycle or any of that?
Yeah, so I wrote down a few books that I kind of I really like.
I love this. I'm going to write them down.
Okay. So one of my favorite books is written by a naturopathic doctor, Dr. Laura Bryden, and it's called The Period Repair Manual. So it's a great, just kind of like 101, everything you want to know about cycles, to what contraceptives do to your body, what are your choices as a woman in this day and age, and what's the science behind it, and what are the symptoms you're feeling. And she does a great job with explaining that. And then something that recently came out by Nicole Jardim is Fix Your Period, and she's a health coach that a lot of my patients have kind of referred to her book as well. She's a health coach, and her book is it's a lot of fun because she keeps it really light, but she has some great information on there, and she kind of offers like the 6-week program of like how to support your hormonal health with nutrition. I think in general, these 2 books are great that I've been able to refer women to. This particular month, I have teamed up with Jamie Basek. She's a registered dietitian. She owns Loka High. I might not be saying it right, Jamie. Loka High Nutrition, and we're offering the women that I refer to her and she refers to me 25% off our our initial consults. So Jamie specializes in women's health as a nutritionist, and her specialty is integrative and functional dietitian / nutritionist, digestive health expert, and she's been working to help women restore hormonal health. So I met her, and I think she's great, and so I like being, having like a team of community support where I can send patients to, and she's definitely one of them.
I love that. You're gonna have to introduce us.
I will. I plan on it.
You're gonna have to introduce us. That's awesome.
So she's local, which is great, and the books that I mentioned are just great to get. And there's a ton of information out there now. I mean, I don't think this is something that we, like you mentioned earlier, Audra, we don't have to be ashamed of what our bodies are doing. It's a very natural thing that we have our cycles, and we know when something's not right. So there's a ton of information, and great information on how to utilize your cycle so that you can be your fullest self as a woman.
Right. I love it. Is there anything else you want to share with us today?
That's it. That's it. I really enjoyed being on the podcast.
I loved having you. I loved it. I had so much fun. One thing that I do want to mention is that if you are local to the area, the Fit Effect is hosting a clinic that is going to be led by Dr. Lynn, and it's going to be on diastasis and your core, and it'll be Saturday, March 27th at 11:30 a.m. And if you would like to attend, you can RSVP by joining our private Facebook group called the Fit Effect Movement, and then just let us know through there. I'm going to set up also a specific event through that page so people can RSVP and sign up through that. You can also reach out to Dr. Lynn and RSVP through her. If you have any questions for her, or you would like to know more about what she does in her practice, you can visit her website at shebloomspt.com and connect with her on social media through Facebook or Instagram at shebloomspt. Sound good?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us on Goodbye Hangry today. And thank you again, Lynn, for being here. I had so much fun.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye, guys.